I've got it. I've got it. Bob Woodward's hot new book, Rage, the best-selling book on the inside of the Trump presidency. I'm out here in the park because I don't want you-know-who to know I'm reading this. He can get pretty perturbed, and I don't want a tweet thrown at me. Let me read you a little bit from the book jacket first. Bob Woodward, the #1 international best-selling author of Fear, takes readers into the Oval Office as Trump's head pops up when he is told in January 2020 that the pandemic could reach the scale of the 1918 Spanish flu that killed 675,000 Americans. Rage draws from hundreds of hours of interviews, including 17 on-the-record interviews with the president himself. And all these interviews are with first-hand witnesses, as well as participants' notes, emails, diaries, calendars, and confidential documents taking you inside. Bob Woodward's got a treasure trove in here. Let me share with you a couple of passages from the book itself. Gotta be careful out here. I don't want him to see me. Jared Kushner, the son-in-law. Jared Kushner said one of Trump's greatest strengths was, quote, he somehow manages to have his enemies self-destruct and make stupid mistakes. He's just able to play the media like a fiddle, and the Democrats too. They run like dogs after a fire truck, chasing whatever he throws out there, and then he solves the problem and does the next. Then they go on to the next thing. The question was, he said, quote, what is the media obsessed with at a different moment? Because they've been melting down about something every day for as long as I've been in this politics business, for a couple of years. And then what's really happening? It's like a buffet where they'll always eat the worst thing you give them. In meetings, Kushner said, quote, Trump was an expert at cross-examination. He's an expert at reading people's tells. He won't say, let me go with the nuanced position. No. He'll, in a meeting, say, well, what do we do if we do 100? They'll say, oh, you can't do that. No. And then he'll say, well, what if we do 0? It's like, holy crap, it's whiplash. So that's his way of reading people, to see how certain are they of their position. Do they hold their ground? Do they buckle? So that's just his style. And by the way, Kushner added, that's why the most dangerous people around the president are overconfident idiots. It was apparently a reference to Mattis, Tillerson, and former White House economic advisor Gary Cohn. All of them had left. Quote, if you look at the evolution over time, we've gotten rid of a lot of the overconfident idiots. And now he's got a lot more thoughtful people who kind of know their place and know what to do, unquote. That was Jared Kushner giving us the inside look at Trump's style and his brain, of how he manipulates people in meetings to get the information he wants. At the conclusion of the book, Bob Woodward writes, my wife, Elsa Walsh, who had worked for years as a reporter for the Washington Post and then as staff writer for the New Yorker, and I spent endless hours sifting through the story of the Trump presidency, talking intensely for the last year. What was the remedy, the course that could have been taken, we asked? Was there a way to do better? Elsa suggested looking at a previous president who wanted to speak directly to the American people, unfiltered through the media. Not just during troubling times, but during a major crisis. The model was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Over his 12 years as president, FDR gave 30 fireside chats. His aides and the public often clamored for more, but FDR said no. It was important to limit his talks to the major events and to make them exceptional. He also said they were hard work, often requiring him to prepare personally for days. The evening radio addresses concerned the toughest issues facing the country. In a calm, reassuring voice, FDR explained what the problem was, what the government was doing about it, and what was expected of the people. Often the message was grim. 2 days after Japan's December 7th, 1941 surprise bombing attack on Pearl Harbor, FDR spoke to the nation. Quote, "We must share together the bad news and the good news, the defeats and the victories, the changing fortunes of war. So far, the news has been all bad. We have suffered a serious setback. It will not only be a long war, it will be a hard war." It was, unquote, it was a question of survival. Quote, "We are now fighting to maintain our right to live among our world neighbors in freedom and common decency." Unquote. FDR invited the American people in. Quote, "We are all in it, all the way. Every single man, woman, and child is a partner in the most tremendous undertaking of our American history." Unquote. Japan had inflicted serious damage and the casualty lists would be long. 7-day weeks in every war industry would be required. Quote, "On the road ahead there lies hard work, grueling work, day and night, every hour and every minute." Unquote. And sacrifice, which was a, quote, "privilege," unquote. Japan was allied with the fascist powers of Germany and Italy. FDR called for a systematic, grand strategy. A few months later, in another fireside chat, FDR asked Americans to pull out a world map to follow along with him as he described why the country needed to fight beyond America's borders. Quote, "Your government has unmistakable confidence in your ability to hear the worst without flinching or losing heart." Unquote. For nearly 50 years, I have written about 9 presidents, from Nixon to Trump. 20% of the 45 U.S. presidents. A president must be willing to share the worst with the people, the bad news with the good. All presidents have a large obligation to inform, warn, protect, to define goals and the true national interest. It should be a truth-telling response to the world, especially in crisis. Trump has instead enshrined personal impulse as a governing principle of his presidency. When his performance as president is taken in its entirety, I can only reach one conclusion. Trump is the wrong man for the job. And so concludes Bob Woodward's fantastic book, Rage, Inside the Trump Presidency, with all those first-hand interviews with Trump himself. I recommend this book. It's chock full of information. Please read it, especially before November 3rd, so you know exactly what you're doing when you go vote. Because if you're going to vote to re-elect, you better know exactly what you're re-signing up for. So that's it for today. I have to go. Got to get back before he finds out I'm here reading you this book. See you later.